Chosen one, a divine countdown has begun for those operating in deception, and the architecture of their lies is collapsing because someone's partner saw text messages that made them feel sick, revealing a desperate attempt to tie you to an awful deed you never committed. You are still standing because your light cannot be extinguished by a manufactured narrative, while the one who tried to frame you is currently being consumed by the fallout of their own betrayal. Let me tell you what happened, not what you were told, and not the version that was constructed for public consumption. What actually happened is the raw, behind-closed-doors truth that has been vibrating through the air for a while now. In someone's home, inside someone's relationship, in a private space, a phone got picked up at what seemed like the wrong moment. Or maybe the universe decided it was exactly the right moment. Maybe a force larger than the two people in that space decided enough. This ends now. The person who picked up that phone saw something that turned their stomach completely inside out. There were text messages, a conversation, a record of things that had been said, planned and arranged in the dark. And the words that tore through that household like a thunderclap were, "You're disgusting. I cannot believe what you did." Here is where it gets significant for you specifically. Your name was in those messages, not because you did anything wrong, not because you were there, but because someone wrote you in. Someone sat down, cold-blooded and deliberate, and constructed a narrative that had your name attached to something you had absolutely zero involvement in. That person chose you on purpose, and I am going to tell you exactly why, and when I do, you are going to feel a shift happen inside you. Because the reason they chose you is not what you think. It was not because you are vulnerable. It was not because you are weak. It was not because you made a mistake they could exploit. The reason they chose you reveals everything about who you actually are. But first, consider that explosion in that household. That collapse was yours to claim, not the pain of it, not the chaos of it, but the victory of it. That was the first domino falling. That was the crack in the foundation that everything else is going to fall through. And you did not have to do a single thing to cause it. You simply had to stay exactly who you are, long enough for the weight of their lies to become unbearable. Now let me tell you what was actually inside those messages. Understanding the specific nature of the deception is what frees you from the disorientation of being implicated in something so far outside your character. Those messages contained something about substances, about something being placed where it had no business being, about access to another person without their full knowledge or consent, about power being used in a way that was demeaning, exploitative, and completely hidden from the person who loved the one doing it. That is what made the partner feel sick to their core. That is what produced the word disgusting. This was not a minor lie. This was not a small betrayal. This was a violation of someone's dignity, and your name was placed in proximity to it, close enough to suggest you knew, close enough to create the impression that you had some connection to something deeply wrong. That is the specific nature of what was done to you. And that specific nature is exactly why you cannot afford to be casual about what is happening. You do not need to be scared. You do not need to be reactive. What you need to be is fully, consciously awake to what is actually being attempted here. This is the part that most people miss. This is the part that changes everything. While the planning was happening, while the narrative was being assembled, the accomplices coordinated, your name written into the mess, you were healing, you were doing the quiet, private work, the kind that carries no applause, no audience, and no external reward. The kind you do simply because you know it needs to be done. You were releasing things that had been draining you. You were cutting ties that no longer deserved your energy. You were mending what could be mended and letting go of what could not be. You were becoming, slowly and without fanfare, more aligned with what you actually are, and every single step forward you took made the opposition more desperate. Catch this, because it matters. Every time you did something to restore your own energy, every boundary you drew, every toxic situation you walked away from, every moment you chose your peace over the chaos, something tightened on the other end. The moves being made against you became less patient, less calculated, and more reactive. Your healing was actively dismantling their operation in real time. Every time you removed yourself from a draining dynamic, their interference lost traction. You were winning a war you did not even know you were fighting, and here is the part that should land the hardest. The opposition knew it before you did. They felt your power increasing before you fully claimed it yourself. They felt the hooks losing grip, and instead of stepping back, instead of accepting that you were not theirs to control, they doubled down. More people were brought in, more resources were spent, more arrangements were made. Desperation in the dark creates noise, and that noise gets loudest right before the thing being protected finally breaks open. If this message awakens something within you, hype this video for other chosen ones who need to hear this. The thing just broke open. While you were growing, you were also being watched, not the way someone who cares about you watches, but the way a predator studies its target. Every new opportunity that came your way was being catalogued. Every time someone spoke well of you, recommended you, or chose you over others, that information was being weaponized by someone who had no right to be collecting it. Your reputation became a threat in their mind. Your relationships became leverage points to them. Your momentum became something they felt urgency to stop. What you are dealing with is not a rival. What you are dealing with is an obsessive, someone whose internal world became entirely organized around disrupting yours. And obsession is not power. Obsession is the most visible form of spiritual poverty that exists. It is about to cost them everything. Now I am going to show you the machine. When you see the architecture of what was built against you, you stop feeling like a target, and you start feeling like what you actually are, a chess player who just watched an opponent expose their entire strategy in a single move. This was not one lie. This was a system with 4 distinct layers, each one designed to hold the others in place. The first layer was the original event. Something real happened, a moment, a situation, a piece of shared history, and it was rebuilt so that the person at the center became the victim and you became the cause. This is why it felt disorienting when you first heard about it. The lie was not entirely fictional. There was something recognizable inside it, just enough truth to make the lie adhesive. The second layer was your false presence. You were placed by direct claim or by carefully planted suggestion at a location, inside a conversation, or connected to a decision you had no part in. The goal was not to prove you were there. The goal was to make you uncertain enough about your own memory that you would hesitate when asked directly, and a hesitation looks like guilt to everyone watching. The third layer was manufactured corroboration. Other people, some willing, some misled, were brought in to support the fabricated version of events. Some of them knew exactly what they were participating in. Others genuinely believed the version they were given because it was delivered convincingly and repeatedly. Either way, the effect was identical. Volume, multiple voices saying the same thing, creates the illusion of evidence where none genuinely exists. The fourth layer, the most dangerous one, is the offer. Something is going to come toward you that looks like resolution, an arrangement, a deal, an exit from all of this that will feel like relief when you are tired and just want the pressure to end. It will arrive at precisely the moment when you are most vulnerable to saying yes. It is not resolution, it is the closing of the trap. Whatever that offer looks like, and whatever form it takes, it carries a hidden price. The price is your name permanently attached to something you had nothing to do with. Do not accept it. When you feel the pull toward the easy exit, that is the exact moment to plant your feet and hold your ground with everything you have. The truth does not need you to make a deal with the people who manufactured the lie. The truth only needs time, and time is already working in your favor. Look, you already know the attacks weren't random, and if you're paying attention you can feel it. Their walls are closing in. You've also noticed something else. A lot of chosen one channels on YouTube have gone quiet, videos removed, voices pushed off the platform. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice. So let's talk about what we're doing about it. That's why I built Destiny Engine. And when you join, you're not just supporting your favorite channels, you're also fueling your own rise. It's a 360 win. It generates personalized sequences that help you rewire betrayal into transcendence, turn isolation into sacred power, and transform their downfall into your rise. We are using the Dark Elite's own weapons against them, taking their declassified consciousness technology that programmed competition and scarcity and repurposing it to serve cooperative intelligence. The beauty is, you don't even have to lift a finger. You put on the headphones, press play, and your subconscious is rewired while your enemies collapse under the weight of their own lies. This is why I created it in the beginning, so everything they did to break you becomes fuel for your purpose. The collective upgrade is underway. Start your Destiny Engine for $7 today and watch divine justice accelerate in your life. Link in the description. Here is the additional dimension of this trap that makes it so effective. It was not sent toward you cold. Before the offer arrives, you will have been made to feel isolated. The friction you may have been experiencing with people you would normally turn to, the subtle sense that your usual support feels slightly out of reach, that friction was introduced deliberately. Someone spent real energy engineering distance between you and the people who know you best, so that when the moment came to make a decision, you would be reaching for counsel from the very people who created the problem in the first place. Recognize that for what it is, and deliberately, intentionally, reach back through that friction anyway. Make the call, send the message, show up, because the moment you reconnect with your genuine support network is the moment the trap loses its power over you entirely. Let me introduce you to the person operating in the background, the collaborator. There is someone adjacent to this situation, a family member, a person from a shared history, someone who has orbited your life in a capacity that gave them enough proximity to be useful, who did not stumble into this by accident. That person actively chose to participate. Resources, knowledge, and access to channels the main person would not have known how to find. All of it was brought to the table deliberately. The reason for their involvement is as old as human nature itself. This person has been watching you with jealousy, or watching someone deeply connected to you since before you were aware it was happening. It goes back further than this conflict. It goes back to watching you receive things they wanted: attention, respect, natural favor, the way people's energy lifts when you are present. They watched opportunities find you. They watched people choose you. And instead of using that sting as motivation for their own development, they stored it, they let it ferment, they let it become something darker over time. When the opportunity to act on it arrived, they did not hesitate. What you need to understand about this person is that they specifically targeted your abundance, not just your reputation, not just your relationships, your material progress, your income, your platform, your influence, whatever most visibly represents your forward movement in the world. That was the target. They needed evidence that they could slow you down. They needed to see the interference land, because watching you flourish confirmed every insecurity they had refused to process about themselves. Borrowed darkness carries interest. Whatever this person invested in this operation, money, loyalty, social capital, time, every single bit of it is now attached to a sinking structure. The urgency you will notice from them, the strange overreach, the move that goes slightly further than it needed to, that is the sound of someone calculating whether to swim for shore before the weight pulls them under completely. And here is the piece that connects this person directly to those text messages. This collaborator was the one who suggested your name, not the main person. This one, because the main person was too tangled in their own panic to think strategically about who to frame. They were improvising. It was this background figure who brought the cold calculation, who identified your name as the most credible and useful one to attach to the deed. precisely because your clean reputation made the accusation more damaging if it landed. Your name came from this person's mouth before it ever appeared in a single message. That is how deliberate this was. And it is that provable coordination between them, the trail of their collaboration, that is going to be their shared undoing. When one of them begins to talk, they will inevitably expose the other. Neither of them can afford to be the second one to speak, and they both know it. Here is where it gets darker before it gets better. The person at the center of this, with the help of the collaborator, went looking for ways to neutralize you that went beyond the immediate situation. The goal was not only to implicate you in the deed, the goal was to undermine the foundation of trust you had built with the people who believe in you, so that if you ever spoke up, the ground would already be seeded with doubt before your voice arrived. So they went to work on your reputation through sustained, quiet erosion, not through one dramatic accusation that could be easily challenged, through information delivered to specific people at carefully chosen moments, through things that appeared to arrive organically, a comment planted here, a whispered concern there, a post that seemed unrelated but left a question in someone's mind, all of it engineered to slowly shift how the people closest to you perceived your character. False counsel was also part of the operation. Someone delivered advice to you or to people in your immediate world designed to send you in the wrong direction, away from the people who could actually help you navigate this, away from the decisions that would have served your clarity and your protection. The advice arrived wrapped in credibility, probably from someone who presented themselves as knowledgeable and as having your best interests at heart. But the true function of that advice was to create doubt in the very instincts that would have protected you. They were right. Every time something felt off, every time you sensed that something was wrong in a way you could not fully articulate, every time your gut signaled danger before your logic could explain it, that signal was accurate. Discernment is not a skill you develop over time. It is a gift you carry, and it intensifies under pressure rather than diminishing. You were right. Every single time you felt something was off, the doubt that made you question those instincts did not originate in you. That doubt was introduced. It was placed there on purpose. If you carry any kind of public presence or platform, the attack on your voice was even more specific and targeted. Silencing you publicly was the goal, because a person with a genuine audience who speaks truth becomes a problem that is very difficult to contain. So before you could speak, the campaign worked to ensure that the people listening to you would already be carrying an inaccurate version of you in their minds. Accounts mimicked your presence. Narratives circulating in your orbit carried just enough resemblance to your essence to create confusion, but none of your actual integrity. Content and commentary were being attributed to you that you never created. What you carry is real, and it cannot be successfully imitated over time. The people who genuinely belong in your world can feel the difference between the authentic and the imitation, their discernment held, and the ones who were temporarily swayed are about to experience a moment of clarity about what they believed that will not be comfortable for them. After all of the planning, all of the investment, and all of the coordinated effort, they checked on you to see if it was working. They monitored the quality of your energy, the pace of your progress, and the brightness of your presence in the world. They needed evidence that the interference was landing. They needed to see your light dimming. It was not dimming. Every single time they measured what their investment had done to you, your light came back golden. It was unchanged. It was clean. It was guarded by something they had no counter for, and that result enraged them because it confirmed the one thing they needed most to disprove. You are covered by something that does not answer to human arrangements. You are connected to a source that operates completely outside the jurisdiction of whatever they purchased, coordinated, or tried to summon against you. There are forces, call them ancestors, the divine God, the universe, the intelligence that moves through all living things that have been working on your behalf throughout this entire period. For every door that was locked against you, another one was opened somewhere unexpected. For every lie that circulated about you, there were people in proximity to it whose perception could not be bent. For every attempt to isolate you, your genuine connections held with a strength that had no natural explanation. You were never as alone in this as it felt. You were being actively defended in dimensions you could not see. And now that defense is becoming visible in the physical world. The partner who saw those messages is a witness you did not have to find, convince, or prepare. That person arrived fully formed, seeing what they saw with their own eyes, processing it with their own conscience, and reacting with their own voice. Nobody positioned them, nobody coached them. The divine simply placed them in proximity to the truth at the precise moment when the truth needed a witness. Their account carries the kind of weight that cannot be manufactured, because it comes from someone with no stake in your vindication. What they saw vindicated you only as a consequence of them seeing the truth about someone else entirely. You could not have engineered that. You could not have planned it, funded it, or orchestrated it, which means the force that did orchestrate it operates at a level completely beyond the reach of every scheme that has been deployed against you. Walk accordingly. Move with the settled confidence of someone who knows without needing to perform it for anyone that they are covered. What has been done in this situation goes beyond the relational. It goes beyond reputation. The actions taken, the arrangements made, the substances involved, the access without consent, the digital records that now exist in places that cannot be retroactively altered. These are not the kind of things that disappear simply because someone wishes them to. There is a legal dimension to what is unfolding here. Whether it is already in motion or still arriving, what matters most is this. The behavior in question was not a single isolated incident. It is a pattern. It is a documented, repeated pattern. And patterns leave evidence in ways that single events often do not. Evidence is already in position, in places the people involved cannot reach, cannot access, and cannot alter. The person who was supposed to stay silent is reconsidering. Loyalty that was purchased has a shelf life, and the price of continued silence is becoming higher than the cost of speaking the truth. The internal calculation is shifting. When someone begins to realize that staying quiet places them at greater personal risk than telling what they know, that is when the entire structure begins to crack from the inside out. The people who designed this situation did not plan for the moment when secrecy became the more dangerous choice. That moment is here. Watch how the behavior of the people involved becomes more erratic in the coming stretch. Watch the overreach. Watch the move that goes further than it needed to. Watch how someone who was previously measured and calculated starts making choices that simply do not add up. That is not coincidence. That is the behavior of someone who can see the consequence approaching and cannot figure out how to stop it. People who are genuinely confident in their position do not behave this way. Only people who are afraid do. You do not need to accelerate anything. You do not need to investigate, confront, or agitate. The process is already running on its own. Your only job right now is to stay out of its way and stay clean. For those navigating a custody or family dimension within this situation, the exposure that has already happened is going to ripple into that arena. Documents that were being used to support a particular arrangement are about to be read in a very different light. Leverage that someone believed was secured is far less secure than they assumed. The truth about what the actual environment has looked like, who has been present, what has been occurring, what conditions have genuinely existed, now has advocates who are awake and positioned in ways they were not before. Those messages were seen. What needs to come out will come out. Even when the pace feels slow, even when the system seems imperfect, truth is moving, and it has momentum now. Here is the position the person at the center of this currently occupies. Every form of currency they had available, financial, social, relational, spiritual, is depleted or depleting rapidly. Every option was tried, every approach was attempted, and they have come back to the starting point because they ran out of new moves. What stands now is a foundation with visible cracks running through it, a shrinking circle of people who are still willing to be involved, and a level of exposure that grows with each passing day. The returns on their investment have stopped arriving. The arrangements they relied on are no longer delivering the results they promised. Meanwhile, your resources have been quietly accumulating the entire time. The blessings that were redirected away from you did not dissolve. They held in waiting. They are now beginning to arrive through channels and from directions that could not have been predicted or intercepted by anyone working against you. What was delayed in your life is not lost, it is incoming. And sometimes what arrives after a deliberate obstruction carries a force and a clarity it would not have had if it arrived on the original schedule. You are more prepared to receive what is coming now than you would have been before any of this began. That is not a silver lining being forced onto something painful. That is the actual dynamic at work here. The obstruction extended your preparation period. What arrives now meets a version of you that is more rooted, more discerning, and more capable of holding and multiplying what comes than you were before. Your setback was a setup, and the setup is paying out. There is also a reputational recovery already in motion. The whisper campaign that was running against your name, the slow erosion of trust with the people in your world, is losing fuel. People who were temporarily confused about who you are beginning to feel the dissonance between what they were told and what they actually know of you from their own direct experience. That dissonance always resolves in favor of the truth. The imitation of your presence that was circulating is not holding up under the scrutiny that is now being applied to it. The original is always detectable when people look closely enough. Watch who reappears. Watch which connections that cooled begin to warm again. Watch which doors that seemed closed begin to open without you having pushed them. That is the smoke clearing. That is the interference finally running out of power. This is a season of reset. Not a season of looking backward in grief, but a season of confirming that what you healed is actually healed, and that what is coming toward you is not carrying the residue of what you already let go. Old energy will surface. People who went quiet during the most turbulent stretch will reappear in your notifications, at the edges of your daily life, in unexpected messages that arrive without a clear reason. Some of them are genuine. Some of them are carrying the same pattern in a different coat, testing whether access to you has been restored. The way to tell the difference is not through analysis, it is through your body. Your gut delivers its verdict before your reasoning does. The genuine return arrives with accountability, with ownership of what happened, without an immediate redirect toward what they need from you now. The manipulative return arrives with nostalgia and urgency, and somewhere inside the warmth of it, there is an ask. Feel that distinction before you engage your mind. Your physical space also matters in this season, in a specific and practical way. Your home, your immediate environment, the places where you rest and think and create, those spaces hold a charge. When that charge has been carrying the weight of everything directed at you over this period, it affects your clarity in ways you may not immediately recognize. Clean your space with intention, move things, open what can be opened. Create a consistent practice, even a small one, that you return to daily as a reclamation of your own territory. Make the declaration, "This space belongs to me, and what was sent here does not live here anymore." Make that declaration daily, and not just once, because the interference was consistent, and the restoration of your domain deserves to match that consistency. Your memory also needs specific protection right now. When those text messages resurface in conversation, when people begin asking about what you knew, when you knew it, and whether you were present for something, the pressure to revise your own recollection will be real. Here is what you need to understand about how that pressure works. Every time you access a memory under suggestion, you are not returning to the original moment. You are accessing the last version of it you held, which means every question planted in your mind, "Are you sure about that? Maybe you misremember." Is it possible you were there? Is an attempt to overwrite your actual recollection with a version that serves someone else's case. Do not allow that rewrite. Write down what you know now, in your own words, before the pressure of suggestion has any chance to build. That document belongs to you. It is the version you return to when the noise becomes loud and the manufactured doubt begins to feel compelling. The truth you carry is not fragile, but it is absolutely worth protecting. Chosen one, underneath every layer of what has been done to you, beneath the false accusations, the coordinated lies, the manufactured isolation, the legal maneuvering, the digital campaign, there is one core goal that has been driving all of it. It was never really about destroying you outright. It was about making you smaller. It was about getting you to doubt yourself into silence, getting you to dim your own light out of fear, getting you to put down your gifts and stop showing up, so that the people who were meant to be in your world never receive what you carry. Stopping you was the mission, because as long as you are moving, as long as you are building, creating, speaking and showing up, your existence is the living proof that every single thing they tried did not work. You continuing forward is the refutation of their entire effort. So the most powerful thing you can do right now is refuse to stop. Do it quietly, without performance, and without needing to make a point to anyone watching. Do it for yourself, for the version of you that carried all of this weight and kept moving anyway, for the decisions you made in private when choosing integrity genuinely cost you something. Honor that version of you by continuing. There are people in your world who are being sustained by the fact that you have not quit. People who are making different decisions about their own lives because of what they observe in yours. People who are holding on to something important because you have not let go of it. You are not only healing yourself in this season, you are demonstrating to everyone paying attention what it looks like to move through an organized campaign against your name and come out of it, not broken, but clarified and stronger. That is the gift hidden inside what was meant to be a trap. The people who held the line for you while the noise was at its loudest. The ones who quietly refused to believe the circulated version of you, who defended your character in conversations you were never part of, who maintained their trust in you when social pressure was leaning the other way. Those people are your real community. They are not the ones who show up when association with you is convenient. They are the ones who stayed when staying actually cost them something. Invest in those relationships, protect them, let them know they were seen. And for the ones who briefly participated in the confusion against you, who repeated what they were told, who went quiet when they should have spoken, bitterness is not your assignment. Bitterness is an anchor that keeps you tethered to people and seasons that do not deserve your ongoing energy. Let the truth do the correcting. You do not need to be the one who delivers the reckoning. Your job is to keep shining. The shining handles everything else. The account that was suppressed is forming in the mind of someone who was supposed to stay silent. The record that was meant to remain buried is surfacing in places that cannot be altered. The abundance that was redirected is rerouting back to you. The recognition that was delayed is landing. The connections that were interfered with are restoring themselves. The light that was meant to be extinguished is expanding into every space the interference once occupied. You do not have to manage any of this. You do not have to perform it, announce it, or force it. You simply hold your position and keep moving. Keep building what you came here to build. Keep honoring the practice of being exactly who you are, consistently, quietly, and with full power in every space you enter. The thing they feared most is what is now arriving, the fully unblocked version of you, the one they could see clearly, even when you could not fully see it yourself, is stepping forward, not because all the opposition has disappeared, but because you have stopped allowing the opposition to define the size of your movement. The song has changed. It is no longer, not much longer will you be mine. It is not much longer will any of this hold you. The false accusations will not hold you. The manufactured confusion will not hold you. The leverage over your name, the interference in your abundance, the peace you have been surrendering to people who were never entitled to access it, none of it will hold you. That era is finished. What begins now, what you can feel already beginning, in the shift happening somewhere inside your chest, as these words land, is the era of everything that was held in waiting, finally arriving in full. You are chosen. The evidence was never the easy path. The evidence is that you walked the hard one and still came through golden. Go handle your business.